Hello and welcome everybody to the 6 Pixels Under podcast. I am NS, your host. Sorry, I'm trying to move myself into the frame because we do it live as usual. Let me see if I can get something underneath this. Prop it up a little bit more. Maybe this. No. That's what she said, but it doesn't really help me right now. Let's see. Something more, maybe. Now let's try this. Okay. Cool. I'm in frame now, which is what I was looking for. So, anyway, how's everybody going? As they say, down under. One of my favorite sayings of theirs. I am on, let's see, the 7th of August. It is the first week of August. Maybe technically, something like that. And today I wanted to talk about a combination of the recent death of a game, the coverage of that, and then kind of like some more like very general topics that are based around that. So let's start with, well, first let me see if there's anything cool MMO-wise, virtual world-wise out there. So I did want to react to this article. Now, I beat up on Massively OP a lot, but part of that's only because they've been in the industry for so long, and I'm sorry, I'm just surprised that their takes are so bad. But Bree wrote a piece about massively overthinking. Has Discord helped or hurt MMOs? Now, this ends up being kind of like a roundtable discussion. And to be fair, it's pretty nuanced. Like, the first person says he doesn't believe so. The second person seems to be kind of like in the middle, more so doesn't really affect things. Royce herself, or Bree, seems that it, or says that it doesn't seem to be a big change. So it seems like largely the majority of the more veteran members, as it seems, are the ones who don't really seem to have much of an issue with understanding this as a concept. But I think that it's at least interesting to acknowledge that they made some good points here, since I like to be critical of their takes. But let's dive into it for a second. Like, memes aside, jokes aside. One second, I gotta put my dog in. Okay. Anyway. Oh, my hair is messed up, y'all. Let's dive into it. So how does Discord or some type of voice chat or voice service, how does that affect virtual worlds and online gaming? Now, sometimes you see people will push arguments, and to be clear, sometimes arguments surrounding truth are really bad, but there's still truth there. For example, a lot of virtual world players are very conscious of the fact that sociality and the ability to create social interactions is lacking in virtual worlds. However, because either most people don't understand sociality themselves, or the methods or knobs in which you need to turn in order to activate them, they'll kind of end up making poor arguments surrounding why it doesn't exist anymore. And I'll be blunt, you even see this with developers, where developers will release a virtual world and it has essentially no socialization built into the game itself. And, for a while, people felt like, oh, well, that's because it's, you should be able to play by yourself. And to be clear, if you're designing an MMORPG, one that doesn't require you to be massive in any way, then yeah, why would it matter? It doesn't matter. But if you're building a massive world, then obviously having more chances for sociality just kind of makes sense. I mean, sociality in MORPGs, if you will, in online RPGs, the Japanese style, is a lot more about just like coming together to work on a particular task. If anything, many of the socializations and socialization in general in these games is more so insular. You don't really make as many new friends in these games. I know because I've played them religious amounts, including Guild Wars 1, which is a spin-off Western version of an MMORPG, or co-RPG as they were calling themselves, based on very much the same PSO Japanese design. So that's not to say that like those games can't be cooperative, and then cooperative, games make you work together and thus socialize. It's more so that they don't have nearly as many metrics, or rather, aspects to activate that. So compare that to, say, for example, Ultima Online. Ultima Online has criminal guilds, has good, like lawful guilds, has like some kind of neutral guilds, has full PK guilds, has giant zergs, has clan battles, has player housing, has side jobs, has side tasks, has a bunch of different skills you can train. RuneScape, as you guys know, is very similar to that game. Why do both of these games succeed very much so when it comes to essentially allowing you to feel connected to the world and also socialize in the world itself and not just outside of the game? And I think it's because, of course, these worlds have more to do than just fighting. They're not just cooperative fighting worlds, which is what most Japanese worlds are, which is why they suffer a lot when it comes to socialization, because I can tell you guys, as somebody who trains martial arts very regularly, if I only had the time periods in which the actual classes would actually commence and nothing before and after, socialization would be hard for me too. Even though I like it, even though I'm actively searching for it, and even though I'm aware of it. You see what I'm saying? Because you have to actually create the downtime periods in order to have socialization. The before class, the after class, the hey, let's go get something to eat, the social interactions that precede it. Those have to exist in an online world or online game too. Alrighty. What else do we got? I wanted to cover the fact that there's been a lot of Destiny hoopla, and it's been kind of driving people mad. They've been sending me messages about it. So Destiny 2 just laid off, or Bungie, just laid off another like 220 workers, ending work on multiple games, including apparently one that was supposed to be behind the scenes. Now, this is pretty significant because apparently they also promise that there's no new content coming for Destiny 2, which means that Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 are content complete, which means they are basically in maintenance mode, right? Literally. And then on top of that, there's been some announcement that there isn't another one coming. So this has many people feeling like Destiny as a franchise is dead. Yeah. Mind you, look, they talk about how large their team is, so on and so forth, but the reason why some people are very scared is Destiny 3 isn't confirmed yet, and they're working on Marathon, which they already pivoted into a battle royale / like extraction game, right? So yeah, I think us covering Destiny is very much coming soon. I mean, what else am I waiting for at this point, right? How's it going, everybody, by the way? Alright, what next do we got? Honestly, not a whole lot of online RPG news. There was finally some more information about APB. But, we'll see. As far as I understand, I don't even know if they've actually fully transitioned the game to the new engine yet. So, it seems like they've still been stuck on this whole porting process, which sucks. because that was one of those things I would have liked to see succeed, because it's such a cool story. It's basically a team picking up an old kind of like dying game that had a lot of potential and trying to do something with it. And you know, whether it's because I can see myself in that a little bit, or I just think that that's a cool concept, I think there's something valuable there, at least I thought. And so far they haven't really been able to like fully deliver on that. But there's new free-to-play content, and it's going to have some new anti-cheat tech, so maybe this is just baby steps towards that goal. Who knows? Alrighty, so I wanted to talk about the Death of a Game series again. Woo! These podcasts, because obviously I used to have like a whole show and a whole like design, and while I really enjoyed that, to be honest, the problem that I encountered was like I'm stretched very thin as a person already, and I was having to obviously do the majority of the work to set that stuff up, which is normally okay, but when it's also a matter of like, okay, well, I'm not getting the show to deliver in the way that I want every single time, as somebody who's very critical of that and critical of myself, it became like, I don't really know if I want to do this if I can't do it in the way that I want to. So there's always still a future for that series, that kind of show, which is a lot less off the cuff and more about presenting topics and so on and so forth. And I still try to do that from time to time. But as I said, the issue that I was encountering, a lot of repeat questions, a lot of the lectures were kind of just like dragging on sometimes because, again, I'm having to recover things, and it's hard to cover all of that stuff at the same time when you're trying to teach people new stuff. On top of that, it really was reliant on audience participation, and the participation that I was getting was not very much, to be honest. And so having a show like designed around audience participation, but you're not getting like a lot of like guests showing up and being willing to talk and voice on comms, it's a problem. Because like, yeah, you know, I know some people are brave enough to warrior through the chat and the Discord chat, but that doesn't really make for entertaining, like, you know, podcasting and conversation. So you need somebody who's actually willing to talk on a mic, and that was actually like surprisingly difficult to find. And when we would have a lot of the repeat customers, it kind of became this thing where it was like, in a sense, you can almost predict certain perspectives. And you might say, yeah, but what's so different about that? The difference is that in the virtual world industry, it's not very big right now, despite the name and implication. So you're repeating a lot of the same topics, not a lot of new stuff's coming out. Now, if you're covering general gaming, then yeah, there's a lot more stuff to cover there, and so on and so forth. You've been playing the new Diablo 4 season, that's cool. I'm glad somebody's enjoying it. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, let's talk about StarCraft 2. And my death of a game on StarCraft 2. Now, for starters, obviously, for those who saw the video, thank you for the support. And, you know, of course, if you didn't watch the video, the little bit of backstory that I'll dive into without spoiling too much of the video is that I had been playing StarCraft 1, I mean, probably all the way up until, like, I got invited to StarCraft 2. Like, literally. So, to put that into context, I nearly had been playing for 10 years. StarCraft 1 was my first multiplayer game. Was my second PC game behind Diablo, and it changed my entire view of strategy and strategy games. And the hilarious part is it basically obsoleted chess for me almost instantly. That's why it's so funny for me to see chess having this big resurgence, which I'm happy about, of course, as an old chess player who was formerly taught. Growing up, though, I'm just like, how can you pick that over RTSs or 4Xs? I'm just sorry. It's never going to be a pass for me. Chess never evolves, right? Not really. Not anymore, especially. The level evolves. The game itself doesn't. It's fairly logical and simple. The pieces move in these particular ways. Retirement of a game just doesn't have the same ring to it. Yeah, and well, that's the thing is, Mark the Shame, I've gotten this a couple of times, like, and to be clear, I'm not saying this is like your opinion. I think you're memeing about it, because I'm pretty sure you've been here for a long time. Because if I remember somebody's name in Discord or in chat, I've either like interacted with you or I've like read your comments and liked them. So like for me, like my view of the people who joined the chat that I recognize is obviously, like any human, very high. Because for me, it's like, hey, you took the time to not only watch my videos or talk to me on Discord, you took the time to actually like watch me stream. And to be clear, I don't think I'm the most fucking exciting streamer or some shit. I think I have something of value to say and share, but that's not the same thing as being like super entertaining, right? Anyway, people have asked me about the series name a lot. And the truth is that they always will. Just like any series that exists that doesn't literally describe whatever it is that you're going to be covering. And, you know, you like to hear the point, you will hear the point, rather, literal and literality a lot, and realize how silly they are once you read a couple of books. Something I did a lot as a kid and continue to do. Anyway, so let's start. I got invited to StarCraft 2. I think like, so I want to say 09, but something tells me it could have been the end of 08. I don't remember exactly. Obviously, this is a long fucking time ago. And simultaneously, once I got invited, oh my god, I spurged out. I went crazy. And I just started, one second. They're like growling at each other because they both have bits of food and they're like trying to communicate to each other, like, give me your food kind of thing. My two dogs, they're being idiots. Anyway, like many of the people in the video were. We're all animals though, right? Anyway, so I got invited, I think sometime the end of 2008 or the beginning of 2009. And something I want to acknowledge for many people who weren't there, people will post screenshots and say, oh wow, StarCraft 2, it still looked pretty good back then. It did. It already had pretty much all of the graphical like ability / like presentation that it already had. Why is my chat so delayed? Holy shit, my chat is delayed. My chat on screen is like insanely delayed, and I don't understand why. Because I just saw Meme Beam say yo, and I'm pretty sure he said that like 30 minutes ago or some shit. But anyway, so the game definitely looked very good. To be clear, right? It always had that good look to it. And StarCraft 1 wasn't necessarily known, at least for me, as being like super graphically amazing. At least I never saw it that way, and I grew up with it. StarCraft 2 for me was like, wow, this looks good. And I hated Warcraft 3's graphics, to be clear, so StarCraft 2 for me was like perfect. Now, the thing that was really broken in the alpha, which a lot of people forget or like to retell the story kind of like in a false way, is that the rushes were completely broken. All the cheese was broken. And part of it was because they hadn't finished actually balancing it yet. So it was funny because, like, for example, Reapers used to be buildable without even having a reactor. And so you could actually double spam them. Watch Big Dog's Humankind? What's Big Dog's Human? I've heard of Humankind. Or wait, is that Big Dog's Hanumankind? Sorry, I'm not trying to meme you. Did you actually spell that incorrectly? Or are you trying to say Humankind? Because I've looked at Humankind. It looks okay. I'm a big Civ fan. I think I have like fucking 500 or so. And all the Civs combined, I have like probably like 700 hours. I'm pretty big in Civ. Anyway, going back. Reapers used to be able to spam them, guys. So guess what your boy did? I'm a micro guy. Obviously, grew up playing StarCraft. And yeah, they were completely broken. No, they were 100% broken in alpha. Again, if you weren't in alpha, I wouldn't speak on any of that. Because if they weren't broken, why did they change all of the balancing? They literally completely changed the balancing of the early game to cost way more gas and make things cost gas in the first place. Because obviously having Terran fast like harassment units without needing to even have reactors for them or a refinery was just like, it didn't make any sense. So that got changed, I would say probably like, I want to say like maybe 4 to 6. Blizzard's really slow to change shit in their alphas and betas. they do change shit, and they change it a lot. Like, you have to give them a serious amount of credit for that, or at least you used to. They really are amazing at that shit, guys. But it took them at least like fucking 6 months to change that shit. So then after that, I would argue that already by the end of Alpha, StarCraft 2's meta had already formed and was already looking pretty good. Mind you, none of us actually understood what the design was fully yet, because to be clear, getting interviews from people and the designers and hearing them describe the game before you had the chance to fully sink your teeth into it doesn't really make sense, right? Like, you have to actually have the time to break into it. And so my revisionist part of my series that makes it much easier to analyze, as many people in chat can probably agree, is that going back is much easier, because you can just look and be like, oh yeah, I remember this part, and then here's the actual data and the timeline of events, and it went like this, this, that, and this. So what I'm trying to argue here is that many of us didn't understand what the downsides of the design of StarCraft 2 was, or if there would even be downsides. And to be clear, there is a legion of loyalist StarCraft fans, that StarCraft 2 fans, to be clear, that still don't even think that the game is flawed in any kind of way, despite it literally being proven. But that's another story we'll get into in a second. So the bridge from StarCraft 1 to StarCraft 2 was pretty tenuous, or strenuous. And the reason being is that the games were not at all alike. Many people who don't play StarCraft 1 will try to tell you that they're similar. You can immediately spot a non-StarCraft 1 player by a player who tells you that they are similar. Because if you read Rob Pardo's interview, or see it in my video, he literally even admits it's not the same as StarCraft 1. They don't have the original guy working on it anymore, for starters. And second off, they literally said they're going to make more of a macro-based game on top of having more of a high skill variance game, which people will constantly accuse StarCraft 1 of. But here's the thing about StarCraft 1. It became competitive on accident. I think that's a common misconception, is StarCraft 2 was literally constructed to be an esport and be competitive. I repeat, constructed to be an esport and be competitive. That's why those are the only players left playing the game, and there's barely any of them left playing the game. StarCraft 1 right now has more casual players than StarCraft 2 has players. Like, StarCraft 1 has an insanely large casual scene. It's just that most Westerners don't know about it, because both StarCraft 1 Remastered failed in the West, and StarCraft 1 has never been nearly as large in the West, and I'll specifically argue more of like the US / like UK / like West Europe. Because Eastern Europe, it's always been big. I know, because I've played with tons of Eastern Europeans. Def Jam India. It's a Def Jam in India game? That actually sounds fucking hilarious. If you're being serious, Ralph, I'll actually look that shit up, because I think those kinds of games are pretty hilarious. Those, like, what is it, Def Jam Fight for New York or whatever? I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but you could be memeing the shit out of me. And it's high-level memeing, because I'm actually trying to take you seriously. But yeah, to go back real quick before I go more into the StarCraft history, we're on one today. No singing, so I've got all this energy. Let's go. Mark the Shame said, talked about the series name. So the series name, wasn't invented for the literality of the word death. Now let me stop there. Oh, but nerd, you're just bending the word of death. To be clear, death is one of the most studied and oldest words in the literal language of a human. You can look this up if you think I'm full of shit. It is the most studied, most essentially obsessed about word is death. And so what that means is that it actually has a fuck ton of meanings. Are you that dumb to think that because it's so studied, they were all studying the literality of the word? Like, think about that for a second. The word is so complex, it's so fucking old, creates entire religions based around it, like, you know, my ancestry, the Mexica, and many other ancestries that have death in their religion. And you think that all of them were just thinking about the literality of death? That's such a surface level thought that even people 10,000 years, you know, in the past, we're already past that point. Like, a common misconception that humans have about old humans that are 10,000 years older than them is that they were, like, dumb. Their brain is the same as ours. So if they were studying death back then, there's a good chance they probably had a better understanding of many of you who are trying to use the literality definition as if it's the only definition that exists, first off. And second, as if it's the only way you can use the human language. First off, there's a term called colloquial. Colloquial literally means it's the common conversational usage. Whenever someone says, man, this club's dead, do you show up in the background and say, wait a minute, clubs aren't actually animate objects. They cannot be actually living. And the building is still open. What are you talking about? No, you would never say that, because in English, if you were a native English speaker, or even ESL, people would just make fun of you. They would say, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we're joking, or we're making an exaggeration, or we're making a colloquial term or statement. What are you talking about? And then on top of that, when you actually realize that death is not just a literal state at the end, it's an actual process, meaning that you could be dying. For example, chronicling a death could also actually be chronicling its dying process, right? All this is very simple stuff for people who read, for people who, you know, bother to look shit up in the dictionary, and so on and so forth. But I'll tell you the actual, like, personal reason I created the series. There's two reasons. One was, I was reading at the time a lot of postmodernist shit, and it was because my school was making me. And I like some of that stuff, but obviously some of it can be very much like, everything's depressing, the world sucks. And it kind of feels like very one note. But that's because art can feel one note when it's based on an age, literally. I mean, if you study, and I studied art history, I had to take it in school, arts all have their history ages, right? So during this kind of like period of time, I read something from Arthur Miller, very famous novelist slash playwright. More so playwright, and I love plays, by the way, in theater and so on and so forth, or like we say in the South, theater. But Arthur Miller wrote something called Death of a Salesman, and Death of a Salesman then spawned another movie that's kind of based off of it called Glengarry Ross, and it got its own movie too, but Glengarry Ross is kind of like the more famous like adaptation of the similar concept of it. They get linked together a lot in literary like circles. And so Death of a Salesman basically just talks about this guy who he's almost like completely delusional that things are gonna go great, even though he's already failed. And for me, that's just like exactly how I felt with Star Wars Galaxies. The first video I made, which is I always felt so strongly about the game, both logically and emotionally. I felt like those things in like my own autistic spectrum way would override all of the other things outside of that. And the sad truth is many gamers realize this the hard way, like me, it doesn't. All that other stuff ends up weighing a lot more because it pays the bills, because it's what brings players in, because it's what players recognize the game for. All the cool stuff you love and think is awesome comes after you actually go through the whole process of experiencing it, which is hard for people to even go through that process, right? So that's why I ended up making the series, for that reason. My second reason actually was because a friend of mine at the time asked me a very simple question. If Star Wars Galaxies is so fucking great, why did it fail? And it was like a light bulb moment for me. I don't fucking know. And so I started doing research and research and research. My first script was 8,000 words. It was insanely long. The research was even longer than that. It wasn't even made to be successful media. It was made to be like my love letter slash like dissertation to the Galaxies slash MMO audience surrounding it. And, you know, it all culminated in me being able to talk to Raph Koster and still be able to talk to Raph Koster, the creator of it, because of that. And that is actually what gave me the confidence to keep going and do it more professionally, was getting the developer feedback. Yes, your feedback, guys, trust me, is what makes me wake up. It's what makes me want to keep doing the videos when I'm tired. It's what makes me want to, you know, stuff more content in. It's what makes me want to dive deeper. But the developer stuff and the high-level testimonies, that's what was making me believe in myself, because I felt like an imposter. In my eyes, I just felt like I played and tested games for like 20 years. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, that to me wasn't that special. But it was like I started to be in certain circles, and I won't name names, of some high-value, you know, gamer people. And they started to be like, how do you know all of this shit? And for me, I'm just like, I'm a loser. I'm a nerd. Like, what are you talking about? I'm Nerd Slayer. Like, I know this shit. But it actually was like, oh, wow. I've been spending way too much of my life on this. And I've told people it was like this existential crisis moment, ironically, postmodernism, right? Where I had to make this decision. Do I want to do something professionally using this skill and hours of time that I've spent so much of my life doing, or just abandon it and time to grow up? Motherfucker, I didn't grow up, man. But you guys know what I chose. And Jay says in chat, how much did Frost Giant pay you, though you literally never said? Well, if I got paid, I would have to disclose. Like, to be clear, the reason why you're seeing, for example, somebody like Mr. Beast get a lot of shit recently is not because of something like that. He'd never be that stupid to make that mistake. It's actually because he does sweepstakes, or he actually makes you buy a token, and a sweepstake combined with a giveaway is actually illegal in the US. I'm not going to speak for all the other countries. For the US and for my platform, YouTube, and for many other people's platforms, the US law says you have to disclose anytime you ever get a sponsor, right? A sponsor is when money is being exchanged and you sign a contract, right? An NDA, a contract to deliver whatever deliverables it is. To be clear, nobody ever gets sponsored without signing contracts unless it's a buddy-to-buddy, hey, I know you, you're the owner, and I'm your brother kind of thing. The reason being is because you could just take the money and do nothing. Like, I mean, that makes no logical sense. So like, yeah, you'd always have to sign a contract. Otherwise, you could just take the money and run, right? So if you sign a contract, you have to, obviously. Dude, why is it so fucking delayed, Box? I just saw your message. It's like insanely delayed. It's like 10 minutes delayed. I'm not that famous of a fucking, you know, YouTuber or streamer or whatever the fuck. I don't need a massively delayed chat. Anyway, so people like to go back to, so one thing about humor, let's talk about humor for a second. And it's pretty cringe, I have to describe humor in fucking 2024. But this is the state that we're at. This is the same group of online kids and people who think trolling is just yelling very loudly, to be clear. So this might be a new concept for them. Humor, what does it mean? It's when I say something that I think is funny. Notice that I didn't say, it's when I say something that I think is funny that people must laugh to, and they must find it as funny as me. Because nobody seriously that makes jokes or is humorous would ever think that way. Because it's not how jokes work. It's like, I could just walk up to people, insult them, and be like, bro, I'm just kidding. I thought it was funny. Huh? And they would be like, oh, dude, it's a joke. And I would just slap them in the face a few times. I'm just kidding, bro. And they'd be like, oh, it's a joke, man. That's not how humor works, literally. Like, are you fucking stupid? Humor is based on the audience that receives it, including even the person that you're making the joke to. Now, can somebody be the expense of a joke? Absolutely, of course. For example, you could say like, oh, so-and-so's, you know, my fucking grandma died. Death of a grandma. Like, to be honest, like, I'm probably not even going to be that offended by it. Because it's kind of like, I'm terminally online myself, and that's just a terminally online joke. Now, mind you, if I don't know you, that gives me license to then make fun of you in the same sort of way, right? But if you're one of my friends here and I know you, like, it's kind of just more like, it's funny. It's a stupid meme, right? Even though it's talking about something about me. That's not really that funny. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like I don't have a sense of humor, and I certainly don't have a morbid one. Look at my post history on Twitter, Reddit, or even YouTube comments to see if that's true. Or even just listen to me for a little bit on stream, or talk to me personally, and you'll find out that that's how I got by through my shitty life, okay? Was making all of those shitty jokes. Now, people like to say that you can't analyze a joke. You actually can. For example, if I say, yo mama's so fat when she jumps into the sea, all the whales start singing, we are family. I can describe the joke as your mom fat because whales fat. Whales feel conjunction and similarity with your mom, so mom fat, funny joke, right? You can actually still break jokes down. The joke that was levied against me is this. You ready for it? It's comedic genius. Oh, but I bet he's really a frost giant shill or a Stormgate shill. Secretly, how much did they pay you? It's like, okay, well, what's the actual joke? The joke is that I'm not disclosing it, which is fraud. Now, is fraud kind of funny? Yeah, like Bernie Mac or Bernie Madoff. Bernie Mac. Rest in peace, Bernie Mac, fucking quality comedian. Just took a stray for no reason. But Bernie Madoff, right? Like, yeah, fraud's kind of funny a little bit, right? Like, but it's horrible at the same time. Imagine all the people who spent all their money on that shit and lost out on it, right? I know most of them have enough to live, so on and so forth. I'm not saying, woe is me, people with lots of expendable income, but you get my point. Fraud is kind of funny. Now, frauding and talking about a YouTuber who literally like produces their sources in the description and is willing to literally argue with you about the contents of the video, why would I commit fraud? And commit it in such a stupid way? Like, think about that. That's not even about being funny, it's just being stupid. Because what's funny about that? That I'd be so dumb to commit fraud over something I didn't get paid for? Like, or that let's say I magically did get paid for it. I tank my YouTube career for maybe a couple thou? What? You know how much money I've made on this shit? And how I make a living off of it? Why would I tank my career over that and my literal integrity? I wouldn't get hired anymore. Like, there's so much that would go wrong for me. I don't really see the funny part there. And then here's the funny part for me. This is where the joke becomes funny for me. Because sometimes jokes can be funny even for the person accused of the joke, right? I think it's funny because Stormgate's never even mentioned in the video. Which means that all of you guys in the comments crying about that shit, you're not joking about me, you're making fun of yourself, you dumb idiots. How am I being made fun of? I wouldn't commit fraud, so it's not funny to me, and I wouldn't even do that shit. What's funny is you're literally admitting you're so triggered that I was giving away free copies of a game that I tested. By the way, you want to know how many other games I test and give away free copies for? Ask my Discord. Ask the people that play with me regularly how many copies of games I give away that I test. Or how many copies are given to me for free. Like Marvel Rivals. Right? Recently. Which I actually like, by the way. I should talk about that. But yeah, Stormgate was never mentioned, which means you're the triggered one. Oh wow, this is truly a Stormgate ad that you mentioned it in the pinned comment. Ah, it's like, what are you talking about? Because I covered the truth about the game, that triggered this is a Stormgate ad. That's not a joke. You were sad or you were butthurt about it, trying to make some type of one-up thing to make me look bad, but you just make yourself look like an idiot. That shit's so funny to me. It's not even mentioned in the video. Imagine how fucking sad and emotional you have to be like, it's an ad. That was fucking funny to me. Hey, I appreciate the help, Casey. I remember you. It's the most trending song. Okay, I'll go check it out. Why? Are you saying that because you know I like to listen to foreign music, Rolf? You know, I don't know if you were there for that chat. Do you know that I like foreign music? I'm just wondering why are you suggesting it? Because I do, but it's just random as fuck. For me, the only thing good that came from Blizzard was the edited RPG maps of Warcraft 3. Yeah, to be clear, that's my favorite thing about Warcraft 3. I did not like competitive in Warcraft 3, nor did I even like the campaign that much. I know, sacrilegious. I know, I'm outing myself. What's the sign or whatever? Like the 3. I'm outing myself, but no, it was the RPG maps for me. Helm's Deep in Warcraft 3 was fucking fire as shit. I used to play it every morning before school, like 3 maps before school. I was obsessed with it, dude. Strobel, nice Richard Lewis shout out. I like Richard Lewis, and as far as I understand, he seems to like my content as well. I believe he deserves more respect. And that's why whenever I try to cover things in his wheelhouse, I always try to treat it like such, which is that, like, people like that for me, especially people who were doing it before you could even fucking make money doing it, like I'm doing with Virtual Worlds, I have a lot of kinship with those types of people. Because same thing with Total Biscuit, I respect him so much because he was doing online MMO podcasting before anybody was. Like, these are people, Richard Lewis and TB, who led the way for the UK and all of esports and gaming in general, like, in many ways. And, like, I know people will be political, and I don't like this person because of this reason, and I get that stuff sometimes. But as far as I understand, Richard Lewis is a pretty stand-up guy and has the ability to defend his positions, which means I have a lot of respect for people like that. I just find it weird people aren't assuming that Microsoft is sponsoring you. I mean, that makes a lot more logical sense, but it's because of people were... the reason why people... well, at least this is the argument I was given, okay? How could this not be shilled when you did it the day before the launch of the game in early access? Okay, it was like, okay, first off, I don't do these videos by myself. You're a very naive child if you think that the majority of bigger YouTubers even do them by themselves. They don't. Almost nobody does in my level to hire. I have an editor, which means I use my editor. I hand over all of my assets to my editor, and he can confirm this literally under law, fucking hand on the Bible, because it's such an easy thing for him to admit. I hand over all of my shit. And then guess what my editor tells me? Anyone in the industry knows this guy, so if you don't know and you admit that you don't know, or you accuse me of shit, you basically out yourself whenever you talk about shit you don't know what you're talking about. The answer is, it's project-based. He finishes when he's fucking done with it, you dumb fucks. Imagine, Tom, I'm sure Tom would even find this shit funny. The idea that he's working fucking insane hours to try to push the video out so we can make the deadline, so we can make money. We do this for a living. The pay rate terminates at the end of the month. Again, anybody in the industry, even who understands just a little bit, knows this. And then you get paid the following month, right? Only once a month. So why do YouTubers rush videos out at the end of the week? So they get paid. Duh, it's not fucking rocket science. If you ever see me launch a video on the last day or two, that means I got a sponsor for it. This one wasn't launched on those days. I had enough days still to complete the rest of that month, because that was the whole fucking point. But the other funny part is that Tom literally told me, hey man, I'm gonna have to delay to this time. So as if it's like me pulling the strings magically. And Tom's telling me like, hey bro, I couldn't finish it. Like, it's so funny. I appreciate that, Evzo. Correct, Father Enrico. Pushi. Is it Pushi? Or Pussy? Enrico Pussy. Your name sounds like a meme in Spanish or even Italian. But maybe I'm just memeing it incorrectly. But yeah, to be clear, I have a lot of things to talk about when it comes to the copium that I experienced with the StarCraft 2 audience. I enjoy your videos concerning your brand, concerning your channel. Hey, thanks. I was given a free copy of V Rising from the Meme Slayer, yeah. And you want to know why they gave me those copies? True story. And I have the paper trail, as usual. The company, Stunlock Studios, actually contacted me a number of months back before that, maybe even a year, because I covered their other game, Battle Right, which I played religiously. And they were previously working on Bloodline Champions, which I also played. They contacted me and said, hey, we love your video. We thought you were right in a lot of ways, and we hope that you're going to be excited to see what we have next in store. I waited, and then they sent me some another email, and guess what they told me? Hey, the thing we talked about is out, and it's in a closed beta/beta. We'd like to give you some free copies to give away to your audience. A lot of uneducated, dumb fucking idiots who can't argue, so like to create a bunch of nonsense, will try to tell me that that's like the equivalent of me taking backroom sponsor deals because the developer liked my content and gave me their content for free. Imagine how absurd that is. Like, Stormgate did nothing different than that. They did the same thing to me. I wasn't paid, otherwise I would have had to disclose it. If I'm ever paid, I have to disclose it. It's not that complicated. Life of a Peasant. I remember Life of a Peasant. I was more into the anime stuff. Like DBZ Saga. And what was the other one? Resident Evil? Wow, Father's going in the chat. So I was going to talk about arguments and kind of like going into the StarCraft 2 arguments, but Father's already getting me started here. So Father says, yeah, exactly. Classic trying to make statement under the veil of a joke. And then whenever they get called out on it and basically accused of whatever it is they're accusing me of, like, hey, you're accusing me of fraud. Like, I don't really think it's funny. I would never accuse people I know in their careers of fraud. My best friend wants to be a doctor. What's funny about accusing him of fraud? Think about it. I'm in public, I'm like, he's a fraud. Like, what are we doing? What's the joke? That could do serious career harm. What the fuck are you talking about, you stupid idiot? Because you don't give a fuck doesn't mean other people won't give a fuck about their careers. Me just accusing my dad's restaurant of fraud. Like, everyone here, fraud. Isn't it funny? The fuck, everyone would stand up in the restaurant staring at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's so funny when you try to like apply many of these things into the real world, you get laughed out of any arena, any serious arena. But yeah, so let's go back to like Activision, Blizzard, and StarCraft 2 ODing on copium. Now, this is something that's thrown around a lot, and I don't want to just use it willy-nilly. Let's actually back this up. So, in my StarCraft 2 video, I covered all of the timeline of events that led up to the basically the story I was trying to tell was that the timeline wasn't just about, oh, well, things got old. That's a cop-out. Oh, well, the RTS industry is just dead. That's a cop-out too. Oh, well, it's just the Zoomers. That's a cop-out as well. All of these are cop-outs that people just try to make to try to basically not have to actually argue whatever positions they need to argue. And guess what? You do have to argue StarCraft 2's design. When the fucking design directors are telling you, hey, this game is intentionally alienating to low-skilled players, by the way, and we're never going to put that much effort into bridging that gap. Oh, and by the way, we're going to make it basically focused on being an esport. I haven't heard a single loyal StarCraft fucking 2 fan who's still posting in the subreddit and shit and interacting with the content despite most of them not even playing the fucking game, by the way. None of them have argued about that. None of them have said, oh yeah, well damn, you're right about that. They really kind of shot themselves in the foot by kind of like making the game more difficult in all of these other ways and ruining its viability. Nobody has talked about viability of StarCraft 2. Well, guess what, motherfuckers? The data proves it. The first game sold how many copies? How many did the subsequent expansion sell? They sold the same fucking amount nearly. Which means, guess what? They were only attracting the same loyal fan base who already bought into the game. What does that mean? They lost out on easily another 4 million players that didn't make the jump. Either that's failed design or a failed business model, which is the two things that I outlined. Nobody from the StarCraft 2 outlined any of that or even talked about it. Guys, do you want to know how much copies of Brood War they sold? You want to see how many copies they sold of Warcraft 2's expansions? That's my favorite Warcraft, by the way. I can tell you. You can look that shit up. Why haven't any of the StarCraft fans talked about that? Isn't that interesting? Because they don't actually care about market viability. They don't actually care about how it actually appeals to the vast majority of players. None of that actually matters to them. They just don't want to admit it. What matters to them, actually, is just the fact that they can play the game in the way that they want to play the game, and the way that they deem fit, and the way that they enjoy playing the game. Well, guess what, guys? Only a few thousand of you are playing that version of the game. And that's counting ranked and unranked players, because both of those are counted in the same player stats. The player stats that most of you don't even know. And it cracked me up because when Dota and League came out and Zero Sins is talking about it, everyone liked to be like, it's because the kids just love to play easier games. I've played both games. They're not easy, okay? They're different types of skills. To be clear, that's the big point here, is they don't require you to have all the macro ability. They allow you to rely on your team for macro ability. Dun-dun-dun. Wow! It's almost like StarCraft 2 could have actually leaned into its, I don't know, 2v2 mode. Wow! But why? 2v2 has always sucked. Then why is 2v2 and AoE and 3v3 and AoE still played? Why? Why are they still played in StarCraft 1 and customs? Why are they still one of the most casual ways to play StarCraft 2? Because they just are, guys. And they never leaned into the beginner-friendly parts, the team battles, the working together. The Archon mode came fucking years later. Co-op mode came years later. Like, so much of the casual parts that are actually good came later. And that's the shitty part that so many of these fans like to ignore, is that they try to be like, oh yeah, but you can still join now and play the casual modes and experience the custom campaigns. To be clear, you can. You can experience the co-op mode. It's fun. I literally recommended it. I said it's the best of its kind. You're bashing StarCraft 2. Why would I bash a game I spent so much of my life on? What? I clearly like the game. But because I don't like it to the delusional degree that people can ignore the reality surrounding it. It's like, people think that I don't like the game. I repeat, how many copies did the first game sell? How many copies did Brood War sell? How many copies then was the crossover rate between StarCraft 2, Wings of Liberty, between the two expansions? Guess what? It was horrible. If we're gonna use statistics, it wasn't a good crossover rate. My backup for this, Pirate Software on YouTube has talked about the fact that LOTV made less money than a skin did in World of Warcraft. It only sold 1 million copies. Only? I know, sounds fucking insane. What do you mean only? Guys, the first game sold like 3-4x that. Like, nobody wanted to acknowledge that point. And that's why it's hard for me to take so much of the criticism that I'm getting from the StarCraft 2 fanboys even serious at all, when you couldn't even look outside of your own bubble to see the issues that were there. Let's acknowledge the Saudi Arabia tournament. So people think that sports washing from the Middle Eastern countries that largely exists because they are not caring about financial viability. Anybody who's following this knows this, by the way. You'll realize that sports washing just exists for basically nostalgia's sake, for creating a spectacle. Now, like I mentioned in the video, if your argument is, well, a third-party tournament exists that doesn't care about financial viability and doesn't care about actually injecting that money back into the scene itself. And the same thing I argued in the video is that, how would that really help the scene that much? It helps pay the pros, you know what I mean? But like, it doesn't really help the scene, you know what I mean? Because helping the scene is like not just giving money to prize pools, as so many of these developers and publishers have been failing at. It's building infrastructure. Riot built infrastructure, guys. They didn't just go, okay, first tournament, now the second tournament's $250 million. They didn't do that. They built it up. They slowly built into this massive esports giant that they are. And I was there. When League of Legends first came out in beta, guys, you could only play it on the weekends. And it was only playable, I think, like 1 week of the month. So like, it was like these very like regimented test sessions where all of us were so passionate to test the game. And that was one of the coolest like ways to test the game I've ever experienced. Like, honestly. I think that there's a lot of value in doing it like that too. Which is why Riot still relies a lot on friends and family betas, by the way. As does Blizzard and many other companies. Oh, it was a mount? I thought it was a skin, my bad. But yeah, it was a mount that basically made more money than LOTV. And part of that, I think, is, you know, part of Blizzard not adapting with their business model. But the other part is that the game sold demonstrably worse than the previous game. Like that's kind of the issue, right? And then the other thing that I wanted to cover is, in my literal video, and actually, sorry, let me scroll up, I forgot what his name was. Oh, Father Enrico said that the updates that are provided to the game are essentially maintenance mode updates, it barely gets updated, like a couple updates every like year or year and a half. And obviously the tournaments are no longer even officially held by the company itself. Like, these are actually mentioned in the video, but here's the funny thing. I don't always do this, and I've done it a few times in my videos, but sometimes I have like what I would call like a logical trap. I spring it in my video just to see if people were watching the video. And guess what it's based around? It's just based around like, hey, if you're going to make this video basically demonstrates you didn't watch the video, nor do you understand the video. And if you do that, then I don't care at all about your perspective, like in any sort of way, seriously. This alarms a lot of people because the way that they see it is like the customer is always right sort of thing. To be clear, what makes me money on YouTube is concurrent viewership and viewer duration. What that means is a single time, one-time viewer makes me not even a penny. So to be clear, taking harassment for a penny or less than a penny, a third of a penny. You think me? No, never. I would never give up my backbone for any of that shit. And to be clear, how do other creators avoid that? They don't interact with their audience. That's the solution. Don't interact with your audience and don't create moments in which you have to go against them. You maximize how much money you make that way. But here's the thing. I never made my channel just to make money. I made it to also be an educator. And I also made it because I've been terminally online for such a long time that it's basically part of my personality to be online. And it's been a great experience going through this whole journey. Even if I started trying to do YouTube back in like 07 when it came out. It's been a long ass time. Anyway, in the video I set these two traps where if you mention them, it's essentially a red herring saying, I am an idiot who is either too emotional or too idiotic, or I'm a person who's either too idiotic or too emotional to actually watch the content and which makes me emotionally charged. You understand that? Like, for example, if I watch a video and it makes me emotionally charged, I can tell you why. Because I'm not a child, A. B, and I also can argue for whatever perspectives and feelings that I have. Oh, but you're not always Mr. Logical. Nobody is. Like, emotions dictate logic, but sometimes also follow logic late. You know, like they can make illogical statements or occurrences happen. But here's something that's funny. And I think actually somebody in chat's allowing me to kind of segue into this. Let me first cover some of the comments before I get there, though. I like the StarCraft 2 video. What's up, Say It? I hope there will be more videos with very popular games. Me too. Thanks. I appreciate that, especially because it helps me obviously make more money. The main problem with StarCraft is the entry barrier. The game is not beginner friendly, and they had so much time to try to fix that, I think, personally. I also think that in 2024, releasing a campaign that doesn't prepare you at all for multiplayer is lazy and doesn't work anymore. I think it worked back with StarCraft 1, Warcraft 2, maybe Warcraft 3 a little bit, but less so, obviously, as time went on. I think time has continued to obviously go on, and we're still building these campaigns that don't prepare you at all for the multiplayer experience. I think that they should do that. They should teach you stuff, they should make it part of the lore, and then make it to where, hey, whenever you get to the max level, you actually have a bit of an idea of whatever it is that you're doing. Crab TV says, I'm a Year Plus fan, but I think your replies to the comments on the StarCraft 2 video were unnecessarily bitter. So to be clear, you don't know my emotional state of mind, right? Like, you don't know anything about it. So making a claim if I was like bitter, angry, or anything like based on emotions is basically, you have no idea how I was feeling in any of those moments. And it's why I kind of always make fun of people like you who do that, because it's like anyone who actually knows me knows that this is the exact kind of mindset and face that I have when I'm debating people in heated debates. When people are wanting to throw fists at me. I love conflict, and I don't think conflict is an inherently bad thing. It can be bad, obviously, especially because most people aren't equipped to deal with it, both in terms of verbal and physical as a trained martial artist. But like, I actually really enjoy that stuff, right? And actually, I'll go into a little bit of kind of what you're talking about here. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. You actually have no idea if I'm bitter, angry, sad, mad, happy, whatever. What you could say is I'm being aggressive. You could say that, or you could even say maybe it's being a little bit mean, because mean is basically making a judgment of how it makes somebody else feel, right? But you can't say I'm bitter based on that. because you don't know how I'm feeling. And you don't even know anything about me. You don't even know me. So like any emotional things that people try to like pass at me, this is my reaction to that kind of stuff. It's like, what do you know about me? I genuinely love making fun of idiots. You can talk to people like Box, Deaths, and Zero Sins, and many other people who've sat in on some of my debates and say that like, I will gleefully go into the trenches with you if that's where you want to go. Why would that mean that I'm like angry about it? I want to go there. That's why I go there. Like, I have comments like that because guess what? I actually find it entertaining. And here's why I find it entertaining. My dad operates a restaurant. Now, I would never walk into my dad's restaurant and ignore the rules personally. That's just me. Maybe I'm weird on that, but you know what I mean? Like, I would never just ignore the rules. You know something else I wouldn't do? I wouldn't ignore the room. Meaning I wouldn't just walk into the room and start singing like, Kumbaya, my love, Kumbaya, and just start singing like up on the tables. I wouldn't just do shit that basically ignores whatever the spirit of the place that I'm visiting is. Well, guess what? A YouTube channel, just like any platform that somebody can host for themselves, it's my establishment hosted on a platform, right? Just like my dad runs a restaurant hosted by the landlord, hosted by whoever is the property tax person. You know what I'm saying? Like, who's in charge of the building codes. I rent the space just like they do. It's the same kind of concept, right? I pay them, so they're not giving me the space for free, right? This is not a charity. We're working together, me and YouTube. But it makes the YouTube channel mine, legally. It's actually my YouTube channel. It's how I was able to get it back after I got hacked, for example. They talked to me directly, figured out it was mine, and they gave it back to me. And so something that people kind of mistake, and this has happened literally legally lately, is people think that public platforms are private platforms, and then, or rather private platforms are public platforms, or public platforms are not private businesses. This is a common misconception that a lot of culture warrior, like free speech people like to talk about despite having no fucking idea what they're talking about. To be clear, free speech is based on the government's persecution of your speech, meaning that it's basically protectable in public places. The thing is that a website owned by a company is actually not public. Their private company is hosting it publicly. So what that means, and this has been proven in the court of law, so I don't care about any emotions in the chat if any of this hurts any of your feelings, to be clear. Pull up the court cases and debate with me on those. They actually proved in the court of law that because it's in a public platform, and you can't actually slander people in that sort of way, right? In the same sort of context, you simultaneously can control what goes onto your platform since, you know, in this case, YouTube owns the platform, right? Meaning that it is a private platform still, technically, because it's owned by a private company. It's not a public company that everyone's like, or a co-op or some shit like that, right? So to be clear, like the same thing applies going into my channel. Like, my channel and people posting on my channel, you're posting on my channel, right? Meaning that the rules and however things function there, beside whatever exists on YouTube itself, actually exist as well. And this is a common misconception many people have, including, sorry, idiots, because they're not used to people having rules, nor enforcing them, nor enforcing their audience in any sort of kind of way. Most people just kind of let people, you know, spout off like complete nonsense. They don't care as long as they keep getting paid and, you know, whatever else. It doesn't mean anything to them. Well, for me, I actually care about being an educator. I want the virtual world industry to be better off and online gaming to be better off. And part of that is by doing my job, which is covering these games on timeline of events, especially if I have a lot of personal information about them, right? So now imagine I've spent, you know, I've been playing virtual worlds now since 2001. And I started playing StarCraft 2 or StarCraft 1 the year it came out, pretty much, or after, which was like 99. So I've been playing these games, even in question, at the topic at hand, for over 20 years. Like, that's an absurdly long amount of time. Now, when I do my analysis is posted on my video platform, right? On YouTube, for everyone to see. Now, here's the thing. I don't make my content just for people who, like I mentioned in the very beginning, exist as a, you know, third of a cent viewer. I make my content for the people who want to become concurrent viewers, who believe in the series, who believe in whatever it is that I'm preaching, who like whatever it is that I'm creating, right? Or like me as a creator. So I'm looking for the more like loyal and kind of like, I guess you would say critical fan. Because those fans actually are the ones that I live off of. I don't live off of the bunch of random fans that come in every now and then. They make me money sometimes, but they don't really make me a living. My loyal fan base makes me a living. Well, here's the thing about most of my loyal fan base, if not all of them, especially the ones in chat and Discord. They know me. They know how I function, and they know what my rules are. So none of them are pretty much ever surprised when someone comes into chat who gets made fun of, or someone comes into Discord and gets clowned on, because they know that basically the only thing that I care about, if I have no relation to you, which is clear in all the cases that would transpire, is the strength of your arguments. And that's kind of where, like, going into crap statement here, unnecessarily bitter actually activates a bit of my other argument / statement here, which is something called tone policing. Now, tone policing is a very interesting concept because it essentially, I always thought was more like commonly understood, but apparently it's not. So, tone policing, what is it? Dramatic stop. A tone argument, also called tone policing, is a type of ad hominem fallacy aimed at the tone of an argument instead of its actual factual or logical content in order to dismiss the person's argument. To be clear, this on the internet, for people who've basically grown up on the internet, forums, the old school chat, you know, fucking MSN and Hotmail and all that good shit, and AOL Messenger, or AIM or whatever. Most of us understand this because most of us didn't care about the concept of even tone policing in general. Tone policing is actually, ironically, a lot more of a newer concept. Now, the problem that I have with tone policing is I actually find it almost completely useless given the context. I talked about this on voice chat with a couple of the StarCraft 2 fans who were so angry they couldn't even use their mics in voice chat with me. But the thing that I told them was that, like, for example, it's literally a fallacy because you're essentially talking about, well, there's no truth in this statement because you said it in a way that hurt my feelings. Or even worse, like this person said, or you said it in a way that makes you seem like you're the mad one. I owned you. It's like, that doesn't actually address the argument. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't change the contents of the argument. It doesn't change the contents of the video. It doesn't change the truth statements. It doesn't change the data. So essentially, tone policing for someone like me who argues in the context of my series and in the confines that I explain all the time, which is, you know, if you feel strongly about some type of, you know, whatever it is, way about something, then you should be able to probably constitute a little bit of why, especially if you're going to go bring it to other people's desk or other people's table or whatever else to try to talk to them about it. If you're ever going to, I'm just going to give you guys some very blunt advice. If you ever want to be taken serious by anybody who's intellectual, even just a little bit, or taken serious in any high-level career, or even in academia, other people who have careers like this, including my best friend who will soon be a doctor, who's also told me this is true, and many other people that I know in high-level jobs that also back this up, most people in those jobs and places don't give a fuck about tone policing. It actually means nothing at all. In fact, if you go into some of these circles, including when I was in high-level construction, nobody cares at all about niceties. Like, past the, hello, how you doing? Okay, once you're into the shit, you're into the shit. And it's, okay, that's high-level ideas. What's the EJ? Let's talk about how to CJ this. How do we get around this joint? It's all about, like, brass tacks. Like, these are the facts. I don't give a fuck about whatever you feel like, oh, I don't want to do it this way because my feelings. None of that matters in these high-level types of careers, right? So I think that's, I'm just going to be blunt, is part of the disconnection here, is either these are arguments brought by people who aren't that very intellectual, nor that curious of people interested in learning much at all, nor do they have or have had high-level job experience or even, you know, other type of occupational experience where they've encountered people who don't care at all about tone policing and are incredibly efficient at their job, incredibly kind people, and also basically absolutely, you cannot remove this person from the company. They're that instrumental. This is fairly common. And when I was in academia, the little time I was, It was insanely common, right? Nobody really cared about tone policing. Now, why do I think people care about tone policing? There's a couple of reasons. One is that people have like very warped views of how human beings act when they watch content. They think that George Clooney is like he is in the movies. You know what I'm saying? They think Jenny Ortega or whatever is like the same way in the movie, or like what, you know what I'm saying? Like they think that that's a real thing. Many people think that way. So when they encounter me in the context of my series, which is a detective uncovering a mystery and trying to figure out the largest contributing factors to a game or company's death or demise. And that's what I do in my series. So people will usually be like, yeah, but it's so uncharacter-like for you to suddenly make fun of somebody. And it's like, well, to be clear, in multiple of my videos, I make fun of people. Most of you probably didn't watch them long enough to notice that. But it's because it's actually pretty normal for me. I don't think you're supposed to respect idiots. I don't think, like, where in the book and where did me being raised as a Southern kid, was I ever taught, like, when somebody's so completely off base and out of the classroom that you should take them seriously? I actually was never taught that, and thank God. Maybe it's because a lot of my family are, as we say in Espanol, like rancheros, or farmers and animal people. Which means these kinds of people, we don't really have like, what does tone policing have to do with raising animals? What does tone policing have to do with doing the right things you need to do to make sure you're going to prepare something correctly? It doesn't have anything to do with any of that. None of that matters at all. And you can still be a kind person and not respect the concept of tone policing. Now, to be clear, does not respecting tone policing kind of make you a little bit of an asshole? Yeah, actually. But here's the thing about me. I am a little bit of an asshole. I think all of us are in our different ways, but I will tell you very clearly, I am. I will admit such, and anyone who knows me knows that I will admit this very honestly. It's because I'm a very particular person, and I always joke that that makes me a bit anal, and that analness could come off as like, hey, this person's an asshole, right? Where it gets a bit silly for me is the tone policing part getting mixed up into the arguments. If you're unable to present an argument and you care so much about something that you're willing to talk about it on my channel and my videos, which are made for such a thing, I don't have respect for you. Nor do I think that you're anything more than an idiot. Because why would I? You haven't demonstrated that you're anything more than an idiot. An idiot is somebody that has low IQ. Somebody that has low IQ, I would argue, probably is somebody that can't really argue both in good faith, argue really, period, and can't also understand whatever content it is that they're watching, viewing, or getting mad about, which is largely the case, which is why people will largely attack you on the dumbest of points, if they can even attack you on those points, and even on those points, they still lose the argument, right? Like, so let's go back to this post a little bit. Because you mentioned that I didn't read it all. To be clear, I'm not entitled to read it at whatever speed you need me to. Relax, little buddy. I know your emotions are running. My heart doesn't work that way, brother. It's all tight. It's ice cold now, brother. And then he says, there's no need to call your viewers idiots for disagreeing with you or not watching. So I distinguish, like almost all YouTubers do, but they won't admit this to you, a viewer from a supporter or a fan. I don't like fan. I like supporter. A supporter is somebody like Mr. Zero Sins. They have been watching my content for years. They have a lot of opinions about different games that I don't necessarily agree with. However, we don't have to agree on our perspectives as long as we respect each other's perspectives, where they're coming from, and can engage with each other. So for me, Mr. Zero Sins isn't just a viewer. That seems very informal. Mr. Zero Sense is somebody that I've spoke to on multiple occasions, who's listened to my perspective, who's heard me out. This is somebody that I would describe as a supporter, a patron, if you will, right? And there's other people in chat just like that, Box, right? In Discord, of course, my Discord's going to be full of people like this because it selects for people like that. Those are supporters to me. If they come to me, and you can ask any of them this personally, and told me, hey, I thought you were kind of like an asshole to me, and you saw what I was saying in the total wrong way, I would take a step the fuck back immediately and say, whoa, 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 what happened here? What happened? I have dozens of messages on YouTube that prove this, where I have longtime subscribers where we got into like tiffs with each other because I think that they're being an idiot, or they think I'm being an idiot, or we totally misinterpret each other's arguments or whatever it is. And we're like, what the fuck, man? Why are you being this way? We say after we make the arguments, and then we're like, wait a minute, I'm not being away. And then we're, oh, my bad, bro. That happens. We're human beings. It's the internet. There's so much room for misinterpretation, especially because people, I will give them this, you know, charitable point, don't know me that well. They don't know how I interact normally. They don't know that I'm still stuck in MSN Messenger IRC mode. I still message like, and all the lines of text in the same box. I'm still that guy. I am. Just like I'm still the guy that will make fun of you for not taking much time or effort to really consume my content. Because why do I need to give you respect for doing that? Why would I? If you came to my house and refused to eat the food that I made for you, but wanted to comment about it, what do you think the response for me or from me would be? Can you leave? I made you food, you're shitting on it, you won't even eat it, brother. Can you please get out? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, there's no talk that we can have, right? Because I have to actually know that you're actually taking in whatever it is that I'm giving you. And that goes into my second point. Crab TV says, you're not entitled to them watching 30 plus minutes, reading the description, and having arguments prepared to debate you in Discord server. That's just bizarre. Just because you can't do it and it makes your fifis hurt, buddy, doesn't mean that I don't have to be okay with it. Doesn't mean that I don't have to welcome the smoke. Doesn't mean that I don't have to respect my audience is smart enough that if they disagree with me, they can come tell me that. You think I think my audience is so fucking like jovial, like so fucking trivial, so childlike that they can't tell me if they disagree with me? That's how viewers are, not my supporters. My supporters are going to be mature enough to actually argue with me, to get through the shit, if there is shit, to realize why the fuck are you arguing me on YouTube comments, first of all, the dumbest place of all to argue. So I already have a low view of you if you're trying to argue me there, right? Going into the second point, expect entitled for someone to watch 30 minutes? Yes, I'm entitled to that, you stupid fucking idiot. Year plus? Dude, please take the sub somewhere else where they title or where they are okay with that level of entitlement. That's entitlement from you, that you don't have to actually respect the content that you're supposedly disrespecting. How arrogant are you? It's like me walking into a museum telling the painter in his work, I don't have to even look at that stuff, you're not entitled to it. Bro, if it's a fucking gallery and I chose to go walk over there and look at it, then yeah, actually, I kind of am giving that person the entitlement that I'm going to actually consume their content. What kind of stupid argument is this? Like, you can't read or watch something past 15 minutes, so you have to argue that it's not actually something you should do? It's not normal to want to actually watch something. Are you kidding me? Like, what the fuck is this stupidity? I'm glad you wrote this out, and I'm glad that there's somebody that came into chat that I can make fun of. Because as you can tell, I love doing this. And the second point you made, reading the description. You're not entitled to read the description of a video that you're commenting on that makes you so emotional that your heart starts fluttering that you accuse me of being emotional? Huh? How does that make sense? I wrote it there. You can just go read it whenever you want. It doesn't have to be right after you got sensitive about it. You can wait until maybe your fees calm down a little bit. The emotions, you know. You take a deep breath, you know. Then you can be like, oh, wait a minute. There's a description that actually describes the series, that lists the sources that I'm crying about, that actually lists what the series is about, right? That talks about other things in the description that maybe I didn't cover in the video. And then the final thing, having arguments prepared to debate you in Discord server. To be clear, if you want to be taken serious as a person who has a critical opinion, you should always have debate and an argument ready and be ready to debate whatever point it is that you're willing to debate. Because guess what? I have no respect for you as a person if you can't do that. And guess what? I don't give a fuck if you don't care about that because I don't respect you as a person. You see what I'm saying? That's why it's easy for me to discard these kinds of idiots who love to be like so entitled. I'm your viewer. Doesn't that mean you owe me something? Like, yeah, guess what I owe you? I owe you the same thing you owe me. The respect. But you have to give me it, right? It works both ways, you know what I'm saying? Bisexual stuff. But it works both ways. because you're in my establishment commenting on my video that you don't understand, in a description you didn't read, on an argument you can't make, and an argument you can't present yourself in voiceover. This is the sad state of the internet and the sad state of affairs in general, that when people feel so passionate about something that they'll literally slander you over it and tone police you over it, they can't even debate with you about it. But tone police me right now, like, look at my face, tone police me. I'm so angry. It's such a stupid idea that you could like fallaciously reduce somebody's argument because they operate the world and their personality different than you, and you don't know them. Like, this is such a silly thing. Maybe it could be better to do something like Richard's You Speak Your Brain series, where he makes a video going over and calling out comments. You know what, Trouble? That's a great idea. And then I could actually take them serious there. So people won't just think that I'm dismissing them because I get them all the time in their shitty arguments. They'll realize that I'm dismissing them because of that, and I've already addressed it. So that's a good point. Strobel, I like that. That's a good side video. I like that. Modern day League is boredom incarnate. I don't like it anymore, but I played it for many years, so. My favorite was when Richard got a comment, the wrong Richard Lewis died. Ouch. Yeah, I got death threats as well, so don't worry. Like, when it comes to like this kind of shit, especially like being from Texas and, you know, spending a lot of my time growing up in the border of Mexico and now living in Mexico. Look guys, death threats don't really scare me anymore, I'll be honest, man. I've had guns pulled on me. I've been shot at before. I've lived in hostile environments. Internet kids that, first off, couldn't even get anywhere close to my property for a number of reasons, talking about death threats and stuff like that, it's just silly to me. Like, and plus, if someone really wants to kill me, they're gonna kill me, okay? Which is why fearing death is a bit silly past a point. And that's what all it basically resorted to, Maghorn, which sucks, because it's like, I have a higher expectation of people that watch my videos, I guess, than maybe they even have of themselves. Which is that you're capable of reading and listening to my arguments and actually responding to them, right? And you're capable of not just being mad and sad when I make fun of you. Because if I'm making fun of you, unless I'm completely off base, which I, again, have admitted multiple times when I have been, because I missed something, because they missed something, because we misunderstood something, whatever, it's probably because you didn't make an argument. If you read my response making fun of somebody and you read their argument as not being an argument, why are you surprised? Here's why you're surprised, because you live in a society who's taught you that tone policing and participation trophies is supposed to be something that you fucking celebrate. It's not. Get that shit out of here. Take that shit somewhere else, bro. Like, ugh, get it away from me. Yeah, but I won't watch your videos anymore. Okay. Take that fucking blackmail entitled shit somewhere else, dude. I want people who can read, who can watch a video or even listen to it in the background. Like, imagine how much of a self-own it is that you can't watch something for 30 minutes. Just listen to it, bro. What are we doing? Speaking of popular games, thoughts on Overwatch 2 going back to 6v6? I don't think they know what they're doing anymore. And I think that's just them being like, fuck it, spaghetti on the wall. It sounds like a cope, bro. Depends. I cope for a lot of things in my life. Coping for internet arguments or how people perceive me online without knowing me, I don't think I would cope about that. It's just who I am. AO2 just straight up has tutorials set up as mini quests that can teach you strategies. Got you. Considering I've butt heads with Nerd before, I can tell you most people don't come at him correctly, lol. You're completely right, but I don't like the way you said it. A huge percentage of people who jumped into Discord off the video, yeah. And I want to dive into that for a second. The funniest thing about that exchange for me is that people then astroturfed the comments after. I don't know if you noticed that, Maghorn, but they spread this narrative about my moderators. I wasn't even there. My internet literally DC'd, as anyone who knows me knows. Sometimes that happens when it storms because I live in Mexico City in the fucking mountains, okay? Sometimes it happens. But when somebody mentioned it, they were like, oh, dude, I went into his Discord ready to debate, and then his moderators just immediately banned me and said, like, because I disagreed, and they, like, created some weird delusional reality. And I'm like, first off, I can read the ban logs. I can read the chat logs. And third, I could post them for you guys if you want. Fourth, my moderators are volunteer, meaning that they like to get in the shits just as much as I do in some ways, okay? Meaning that if you want to come in being an idiot, they're just as much as willing to deal and capable of dealing with you. They're all online people too. And so the idea that I need to protect them or they're protecting me, it's so funny. We're all self-sustainable. My moderation team doesn't even fully ask me for my decision. You can ask them. They're sitting in chat right now. When they make a decision as a democracy, I just let them go. When they want to ban somebody, if all of them say yes, you can ask them. Do I let them ban them? Yes, I do. In fact, they ban people way more than I do. But yeah, that was really funny because the funnier part about me is a lot of you guys don't know the context, including maybe Maghorn. So there was a couple of people that joined in chat, and we were in chat, by the way. We were in voice comms. And a couple of them started listing like a couple of these comments, like kind of like Crab mentioned, of like, oh, why did this person deserve you clowning on them when they said, yeah, but the game's alive? And it was like, it was funny. It was like, well, funny. The thing about the comment that they actually listed was that it was actually a blatant lie. It was literally a blatant lie. They said, I still get matches in 10 seconds. I Google, can you get a match in 10 seconds in StarCraft 2? I boot up StarCraft 2. Did I get a match in 10 seconds? No. So I have to take somebody seriously when they lie on purpose because they like a video game? What? They literally lied for a video game. Like, how pathetic is that? You're lying because you like something. Like, what the fuck? And me calling that shit out or clowning that shit is like me being unreasonable. It's like, you're literally lying. People saying, the RTS genre is dead. AoE 2 is not dead. It just got new content last year. RTS genre is dead. StarCraft 1 has like 5x the players StarCraft 2 does. But StarCraft 2 is bigger than AoE 4, and it's like, okay. Like, bros, what are we doing here, you know? And so a couple of them jump into chat, and here I am, explaining my thought process just like I'm doing here. And here's the funny thing. 5 of them that were very talkative previously in text chat suddenly start muting their mics. I asked them 2 times, hey, just so you guys know, feel free to jump in whenever you guys want. I'm not here to just fucking talk over people. What the fuck, that's a waste of my time. I'm here for the smoke too. Like, it's fun for me too, to debate or get into the shits. Either way, I can go either direction. Like, it's me. I'm not choosing the direction, you're choosing the direction. And they jump in, they didn't say anything. And then I look at the fucking chat logs and the ban logs, and guess who the people that got banned were? Those same people who didn't even voice chat with me. I don't understand. You're so like pent up and angry, and you feel so strongly that you can't even argue with your own voice. Even after joining the voice chat? Like, it's just, my viewpoint of the StarCraft 2 fanboys right now is at an all-time low. Because the worst part about most of this is that many of these people that are angry about this don't even play the game. Oh, you're just saying that. Guys, here's the funny thing. Oh my god, this is so embarrassing. Somebody came into my chat and said, hey man, here's the StarCraft 2 stats on SC2 Pulse showing the players from all the regions. And I'm like, okay, how many players is at peak? He tells me a number. I respond, you're wrong. What do you mean? I just linked you the data. Brother, read the fucking graph. Did you even read the graph? One of my supporters, Rippies, reads the graph immediately. He's a pretty intelligent guy, says, hey, they've overlaid it to where it looks like the numbers are actually combined with each other when they're not, they're additive. So maybe people are gonna get that confused. This same person and multiple, like 6 other people after have come into Discord and literally demonstrated the exact same thing. They cannot read a graph. And you're trying to argue with me. And I have to treat you with respect. Why? Why do I have to? If I see myself and my tenure or whatever in this whole like online space as being an expert, why do I have to take that seriously? You can't even read a graph. People are showing me like 6-7K peak unranked ranked globally and celebrating it. Oh my god. Why? Bro, at least read the fucking graph, man. And then I get a guy yesterday, he jumps in the chat, and at this point, it's not even fun anymore when I'm dealing with the people who can't even read the fucking data or the graphs. Because it's just like, I mean, dude, I can teach you how to read the graph, but am I really even like doing anything fun at that point? No. And simultaneously, you're just gonna go la 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 la, and then delete all of your posts like the guy yesterday did when he realizes that he was wrong. Because it's embarrassing to admit that you can't read a fucking graph. It actually is embarrassing, to be clear. When you're in any kind of serious environment, if you admit to somebody you can't read a graph, most of the time they're gonna be like, okay, buddy, like, did you go to school? Why are you talking about graphs if you can't read them? Like, that's been one of the most like alarming things about this. StarCraft 2, a game that is incredibly difficult, has incredibly high APM, that has a lot of data-driven parts to it. The fan base can't even read a graph. Like, okay. Yeah, so going back to what John Rowe and Maghorn are talking about a little bit back before, part of the reason why people get mad when I tell them to read the rules is because they don't want to ever have to be held accountable to anything. Most people are like that. They just want to be able to be an idiot and have no recourse. Well, I'll read you my rules. They're not really that complicated, actually. And they're posted on my YouTube comment or YouTube description as well. There's no discrimination or hate speech. There's no affiliate links that don't belong to me. No political or religious talk. Any points that you make have to be substantiated either by explaining your opinion in detail, or when you state facts, you have to actually provide the source. So saying I'm wrong is not an argument. It's not even a child's argument. Like, kids make better arguments than that. So you would have to actually substantiate it, sorry. 5 is just don't argue mod decisions in public. 6, no giveaways, blah, 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 unless they're mine and I give permission for them. 7, when you initiate a discussion, try to add context for help of, creating better discussion. 8, mark spoilers. 9, don't just mention abuse people. Now, here's another little addendum. My favorite word in the construction lingo. If you're banned on YouTube, it's because you criticize me without making any specific points, without addressing any of mine, or you just broke the rules for Discord. Finally, I had an even more recent one, which I even gave an example of. If you don't follow these rules, to be clear, by actually making an argument, you will be banned. Because I don't care about virtue signaling, I don't care about tone policing, and I only care about, in the context of this series on my channel, arguing whatever the context of the series and the arguments are. In my opinion, the same way people accuse me of being like deeply emotional despite knowing nothing about me, I think it's much easier for me to claim that you're deeply emotional if you can't even argue in basic 101 fashion. So anyway, those are my rules, which are honestly pretty fucking simple. I think they're easy. I just appreciate someone being intolerant of idiots. Well, that's the thing is that YouTube is full of people who tolerate idiots. Content creators are full of people with no spine. Twitch streamers are full of it. Great. Go find them. Go watch fucking Ludwig or whatever the fuck. Like, go watch the generalist guy who never has a controversial opinion or doesn't defend his perspectives against his audience. You can go watch those people. I'm okay with. I'm not gonna be like, no. I know who I am. I know what kind of content I'm producing, and I know what kind of person I can be sometimes. It's not going to be for everybody. To put in terms like Milo Rossi used, your YouTube persona is a caricature that doesn't represent your actual character. Yes. Yeah, no, it's bottles of burst. That's right. They do have that. Yeah, I have to have it because I have a fight, tournament this week, and so I'm cutting like weight and I'm trying to stay on weight. So you have to drink a lot of water. So I'm sweating a lot too. Also, why the idea of fisticuffs online is a bit silly to me. But yes, to be clear, I'm not tolerant of idiots because guess what? There's a time and a place for everything. If somebody's making a deeply educational 101 channel, you must have time for idiots. But I'm covering like virtual worlds, social stuff. I'm covering online RPGs and online gaming. And both the social like impacts of these and also the market impact of these. And for me, that is a lot more than just being like, oh yeah, well, did you know that death has more than one definition? Did you know that colloquial is a word and you can use the human language in different ways? Did you know to make an argument, you have to actually, like, you see what I'm saying? I'm just not the person for that. If I try to be that person, I come across as arrogant, I come across as an idiot, I come across as being mean, I come across as all the things that you probably just heard from me. It's not for me, guys. Not every educator is interested in educating the very lowest level of education. It's just true. I fully admit it. When I have my own martial arts gym, I am hiring another person to help me take care of the kids' classes. I'm not stupid. I know where my skills lie. They lie in making things fun so I can make it fun for the kids. But in terms of actually sitting there going back and forth and tracking the progress, I don't think that's for me. I know my skills, they don't lie there, you know? Gringos. What's going on here? What's up, heavy weapons guy? Hey, you sound familiar, heavy weapons guy. So you would agree that some people might have caught strays in the comments? No. Could you bring up some examples that were some good points? Because so far, every time I've been like, someone makes that point, but don't you think some people caught strays? The examples they give me are never good examples. So again, you don't have to like create this like weird narrative. You can just give me an example. Right? You don't have to play la 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 la, pretend there is a magical example. No, just give me the example. Take the screenshot, show me factual evidence that I and everyone on stream can look at and be like, hey, maybe I was wrong here, right? Let's unban this person, or let's tell this person sorry. But so far, and many of the people in chat right now have seen people come into Discord saying that same thing, and the arguments they always make is, but isn't this game still alive? That's not worthy of a respect. Full comment. I'm sorry. I'm allowed to meme you there. It's my channel. It's my videos. It's my rules. You're not taking any of it seriously, so why can't I just make it fun? Oh, but doesn't the game still have a tournament that's covered in the video that I made fun of people for arguing? Oh, but isn't the game still getting maintenance mode updates in the past 1.5 years? Also covered, also made fun of in the video itself. So meaning that if you make these specific things that I would cover as traps in the video, you're basically saying, I didn't watch the video, and I know or don't care that you're gonna make fun of me, but I'll probably act surprised anyway, because I didn't watch the video. Saying something respectfully does not, no, it doesn't. So a good faith argument is not just by being nice. I actually think that this is a completely delusional reality that sadly, a lot of dumb people and people not interested in actually learning or being curious people like to construct this kind of argument. It's kind of like the same argument they'll even use in political environments where somebody will literally be an incendiary person, and when somebody responds incendiary to them, suddenly all the fifis people go, why did you be mean to them? No! It's like... To be clear, not giving good faith is not respectable. It's actually not worthy of respect. What's an example of not giving good faith? Probably repeating those two arguments that I just said that I made fun of, right? Because those aren't good faith arguments. They don't even work. The basis of the argument doesn't work, and they're not good faith. And there's more ill and not good faith arguments that get pushed a lot. Oh, you can get a match really quickly. Define really quickly. What skill level are we talking about here? Do you know that the majority of the player base is past plat or higher? So if you're a new player, then these players that are fighting for StarCraft 2 in the comments, they're not fighting for you. They're fighting for the other existing audience. They don't give a fuck about new players, because if they did, they wouldn't be combating things like this in that way. But that's the problem with a lot of elite players stuck in dead games, and I've been there before. They think because they can ignore all of the faults, that all of the new players that either quit the game already or never want to come play the game will ignore those too. And they won't. There's so much negative stigma around StarCraft 2 because of the audience, because of the fan base, and because of the hardcoreness of the game. And what did StarCraft 2 fans, what did the StarCraft 2 fan base do in the comments here to combat any of that? They spread more misinformation. They created more lies. They presented really bad arguments that even if you had a point of view, there's nothing you can actually present with that point of view because it's so poorly constructed. And to be clear, for people who aren't aware, there were a couple people that came into Discord who actually did make arguments, who actually did stand by what they said, and still even potentially made arguments against me. And guess what? I gave them titles. Because that's how I treat people I respect, and how I treat people that actually have the gumption to come talk to me in an environment that I can actually respond to them, which is what I asked for in the comments on the YouTube comments, for example, which literally just boosted all of my engagement anyway, because it was basically a bunch of comment responses of people being too afraid to even do whatever it is that I asked them to do. So anyway, people like Jin, people like, was it like Laskaix, or I don't know how to pronounce his name. I can look at the join log, but I gave out 2 titles, and Jin was the best example. Jin was a American Korean player who played StarCraft 1 religiously, who had told me that they had been making this argument about StarCraft 2 versus StarCraft 1 and even AoE for a long time. And they taught me a lot of shit, to be honest. A lot of shit I would argue probably 90% of the people commenting on my video don't know about. And if they knew more about that sort of stuff, would completely GG their arguments in very clownish sorts of ways. But here's the thing, at this point, I actually don't care about that anymore, because I've learned enough about the responses, why I'm getting these sorts of responses, what they're actually interested in, which is, I mean, someone literally in comment talked about me getting ratioed. YouTube? Ratioed? How do you get ratioed on YouTube? The engagement helps me. You don't get paid on Reddit. So if you get ratioed on Reddit or Twitter, you don't get the payment for that, right? Maybe just if you farm the engagements, I guess it's on its own on Twitter, because they changed the way that works. But you see what I'm saying? Like, how is that an own for me? This is one of my most commented videos in the fastest amount of time. How is it owning me if I'm getting ratioed by a bunch of people who can't even argue their positions? Think about that. What respect do I have for them? Oh no, a bunch of idiots are ratioing me. It's like, I'm sorry. I wish I cared a little bit, so I could go along with it and be like, oh no, or something. But sí, yo hablo español. Mi español es, más o menos. Entiendo, sí. Entiendo mucho mejor. Porque tengo más práctica para escuchas. O escucha. O escuchando la otra gente. O lenguajes más de inglés. Porque obviamente inglés es mi primer lenguaje. Pero inglés en México, México City, sí, hay personas hablan en inglés, pero menos, obviamente, y menos en partes de mi familia, en la frontera. So, I just said that. Obviously, people want to speak English to me here, so I get to speak it to people because they want to practice or they want to hear me speak English. Or I get to practice a lot more listening to Spanish because my speaking isn't as good as some other people's. And if they're able to speak English, oftentimes we will trade back and forth, which is how it is where I'm from anyway. But I'm trying to get better at just speaking in Spanish sometimes because it's a crutch for me to go between the two. It really is. And anyway. No, I'm not gonna watch that shit now. You've asked me too many times, man. I'm good. I'm good on that, homie. It's nice listening to your videos in the background. Yeah, ArcGage is one of the most innovative games I've ever played. Honestly. Love you, Nerd Slayer. You're my go-to comfy YouTuber. Oh, thank you. See, somebody said that I'm a comfy YouTuber. You don't always have to listen to me on your main monitor. Like Josh Strife Hayes says, you can listen to me on your second monitor. According to previous comments logic, you're entitled to me reading. You are not entitled to me reading and therefore following your rules. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what it's translating to, Strovel. You're smart enough to see through that. EA did Command and Conquer Dirty. Aw, yeah, they did. I'll cover it as well, don't worry. What's up, Keiki? Long time no see, or chat. Why don't the elite players find another game? Unfortunately, there's not a lot of other RTSs to play. SC1 is too hard for most SC2 players because they learned how to play more macro-based playstyles, and obviously there's a large learning curve going backwards. And the other thing is that AoE functions, despite being an RTS, fairly differently from StarCraft 2. So there's not a lot of crossover. Now, mind you, there's a lot more than you think. I know players who crossed over and play AoE now more than they do StarCraft, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I can give you a big number or that I have like the data to back that up, that there's a big crossover rate between those. They're kind of separate, and that's partly why the StarCraft audience and Warcraft audiences don't respect Age of Empires, because they feel like they're separate from it. But it's just absurd and very comical to me when people are like, but RTSs are dead and StarCraft 2 is the most popular RTS. No, it isn't. StarCraft 1's still more popular, and AoE 2 is still more popular pretty much in every other region, every other facet, not considering the custom games. So if you count custom games and ladder, StarCraft 2 globally is bigger than AoE, just AoE 2. Now combine AoE as a franchise, it's a little bit closer. Combine SC1 and SC2 as a franchise, obviously it's you know, SC1 destroys AoE. But that's another thing that's really funny for me about this whole kind of like the audience response to a lot of this stuff, is that like the StarCraft 2 fans are so delusional, many of them don't even acknowledge that StarCraft 1 has more players in their game, which is, I'm sorry, that's just delusional. How do you not know that? You can literally look it up. You might say, yeah, but I'm not Korean. I don't follow the Korean scene. Okay, that'll give you like a slight cop-out. But can't you still Google it? Isn't there numbers released in PC Bangs and what's it called? Aggregate country Statista sites and shit like that, like data? You know what I mean? No, it's not about, when I ask for an example, it's not me accusing you of a gotcha. To be clear, when somebody is evidence-based, somebody presenting something, like I literally told the people presenting stuff in chat, it's never gonna gotcha me. Like, if it gets me, if you will, then that means that I was wrong. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not a gotcha if I'm asking for proof. It's just that, again, like a lot of these arguments are either literally astroturfed, so I'm getting the same comment posted over and over and over again, and you guys can, you know, play dumb if you want. I'm not going to. You can play dumb and say, oh, but how do you know that they're astroturfed? Because I've been doing this for a long time. And I get thousands of comments. You don't think that I know what they look like when they get astroturfed? You don't think that I can identify what it looks like when people copy paste the same arguments, the same things? You don't think I know whenever our Reddit explodes at one of my videos, then tells a bunch of people misinformation about me and my video, literally spreads that as a lie to then fucking rage the audience that still plays the game, or used to then come and attack me. In fact, one of the guys, I'll literally talk about him right now. Everyone can back me up in chat. They saw this guy come in. His name, Nightmarish King. Guess what Nightmarish King says? Look. Check this out. Hey, here's his argument. He did the same thing I told you to do. Present the argument, present the post, so on and so forth. We have a conversation. I delete a bunch of posts because, again, this is not a place for discussion. I didn't ban him or do any of that stuff for that reason. I just told him, look, you're not supposed to talk here, but I'll talk here anyway. Again, another example of people not following the rules. I've had 4 StarCraft posters or people come into my Discord, ignore the rules of my Discord, and then be like, but I don't understand. You guys are such fucking victim complex dorks. Anyway, read this part right here. They were not, just informing you. You did miss some points. And I said, no, they didn't. The end of my video states what the guy's complaining about. I even talked about it in the timeline. Nightmarish King's response, longtime StarCraft player. Okay, to be fair, I stopped right there. He admitted it. I give him fucking credit for that shit. And then he says, okay, understandable, when I said this is why I don't take most people's opinions about this seriously. Then he responds with, and I did watch the video, and just not the ending. However, I would have changed my perspective. That would have changed everything, he says, if I saw the ending part. After I figured out that I was out with a pitchfork for no reason. Because I asked him, why didn't you keep arguing your point? He said, why should I continue? And I actually said, that's commendable, that's respectable, buddy. Unfortunately, I think he left. Oh no, he's still here. Huh. I thought I already gave him his title, but he deserves his title. Cool. I thought he left, because sometimes when their name comes up like that, they left, like this guy. Well, I banned this guy for a reason I'll explain in a second. Anyway, he then states, yeah, that view that was shown to us was misleading from the Reddit users. So do you see what I'm saying? I know it's AstroTurf because I can go look at the Reddit, see it AstroTurfed, read the copy-paste comments that are all saying the same sort of thing, including even trying to say that the claim about fraud was a joke. That got AstroTurfed as well. Like, so many things like that are getting copy-paste AstroTurfs. You guys think that that's organic movement? How would they even know about any of that? They don't know about that stuff. It's AstroTurfing. And you're getting literally from a community member telling you he was AstroTurfed. He was charged up for something that was literally wrong that he got to talk to me about, and he didn't even see where our positions were different about. This is the kind of shit I'm talking about, guys. It's so obvious for us content creators when we experience this stuff now. Ask Indigo Gaming. He recently got AstroTurfed heavily by Bethesda fans. He made a video talking about, was, you know, Fallout saved? Or was it just sold? And it's actually a fairly nuanced and interesting perspective. And guess what the audience responded to him with? They fucking shit down his throat, dude. Called him a hack, called him a fucking reactionary YouTuber, called him a blah blah, all these horrible things. I watched the video myself. Not only do I know Indigo personally, and not only is he a gentle giant, dude. He's giant, but he's such a kind person. Way kinder than me. Even though he could literally snap your neck with fucking his fingers. The guy literally is such a well-intentioned arguer. He doesn't even get into the internet shit like I do. Meaning there's not even like DatCat was talking about mixed signals. He doesn't even allow for a lot of that stuff. He's so like good-natured, and yet they still AstroTurf the fuck out of this guy and his career and his work and treat him like he's like this fucking horrible person and hater. It's like, well, that's why I can also see that shit, guys, happening to my friends, and I'm like, what? You guys want to act like we're getting good faith arguments? Yeah, and that's where, to be fair, Des, I can get annoyed about that because, as you know, I'm somebody with identity issues growing up. Both because, obviously, I was terminally online, I'm mixed race, I'm fucking all over the fucking taste the rainbow in terms of my identity, and simultaneously, my sexual identity is also confusing. I identify as NB, which probably pisses off a lot of these losers. To be clear, I don't really care about all the gender shit nearly as much as everybody else does, including even about me. like, yeah, call me the manly man if you want or whatever. I don't give a fuck. It's just for me, I'm just working out. I'm just working on myself, right? And so I understand where you're coming from, Des, especially knowing you a little bit more personally too. And you know me more personally too. But like, I'll give you like this perspective. I talk a lot about the negative aspects because I'm trying to be an educational force. And that means I want to go against the grain on purpose. And I knew that when I chose this career path, I was going to do that. My first video, for anyone who didn't see it, literally went against the majority of the SWG community. But it worked. Okay? It worked. The creator said it worked, right? So like, I started this knowing that I was going to go against the grain. Because I've always been that no-lifer fucking nerd player who's also willing to be honest about the games, right? And say that they didn't have mainstream appeal, despite the fact that I love them to death, right? Oh, I was hoping I had another candy to eat. I'm out. RIP. I want another candy. Anyway, so I didn't mention this Manu guy, but the Manu guy did what I was mentioning earlier. He came in, linked a literal fucking graph that he didn't read and couldn't understand it, and God, bro, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just like, brothers, please, man. That's not fun for me. I like to shit on idiots, but if you actually have good faith enough to want to try to argue something, but then you're just coming in with no tools at all to argue, that's actually almost worse in a sense, because I'm just like, you're so fucking confident and you don't know anything. But yeah, to go back to what Des was saying, I think the reason why it bothers people like Des and my friends, you know, my other friends, is because for them, they feel like what people's representation of me is so different than who I am, because they're like, dude, he gives away stuff for free. He's incredibly kind and willing to literally teach people when he plays games with them that are complete beginner players. Anyone in chat right now who's played a game with me, I will teach you as a complete beginner how to play a game. I'm just that kind of person. I just enjoy teaching. And yeah, you might say, yeah, but you say you don't like to teach noobs. These aren't the same kind of noobs. People that are gonna play games with me and take time to be around me, even if they're a noob in whatever game context, they're not a noob here, right? And so I want to teach them. I want to interact with them. These are the kind of people that I want to be friends with. Maghorn's a good example. We talked about this the other day. Maghorn said, I don't know if people even understand how approachable you are. Mind you, don't let me quote Maghorn completely, but Maghorn said something of that effect. And furthered it up with, it's interesting to me because when I came and introduced myself to you and said, hey, let's play video games, that's literally all it took. And I kind of chuckled because it's true. Same thing with Card, who's now one of my, you know, best friends in life. Like I literally made great friends from this Discord. Bacon Knight, I've met him in person. One of my good friends. Like, these are guys I met playing games. I met in my literal description or in my Discord. I met from arguing with these guys, from getting in the trenches with them, right? From doing all that kind of stuff. Hey, if you want to teach me how to play PoE, I might, you know what? Yeah, say it. Let's do it. Fuck it. Anybody else here that wants to teach me how to play PoE too, I'll jump in too. Because I'll give any of those kinds of games, ARPGs, I'll always give them a try. Especially the online variant. As people know, Dark Eden was my first online, you know, virtual world, if you will, behind Halba Hotel. Well, they're kind of around the same time. I don't want to say for sure, but they're right around the same time. And it's basically a PvP version of PoE. I loved it. One of my favorite games ever. Was a Korean game. Also had a massive Japanese fan base and Chinese fan base, which is why I became such a fan of those cultures, because I would play with them a lot. Yeah, there you go. The irony is our first game we played was StarCraft 2 custom games. And that's the thing is like, I am that kind of person. You can come to Discord. You can ask me questions directly about the deepest things you have. Virtual worlds. Why did this game fail? Where did this mechanic come from? Why did this mechanic die out? I'll answer all of that shit, especially if it's good shit. And if you have something to teach me, I will shut the fuck up and listen. Ask everybody what I did whenever Jinjin showed up, with all his data from StarCraft 1 and the booby streamers, and how much more popular it is than StarCraft 2, how much more grassroots their scene is. Insane. You're talking the top players are making $60,000 in these tournaments, guys, on salaries. Monthly. Like, what the these guys are making insane money. No one in the StarCraft 2 audience knows about this shit. Guys like Richard Lewis know about this. The esports bigwigs like Thorin know about that shit. But how many actual StarCraft 2 fans know about that? Because they just became StarCraft 2 fans and didn't join any of the other ecosystems. Which, to be fair, there wasn't that many more of them, but you get what I'm saying, you know? That, yeah, like, I want people to actually get to know me. And that's why sometimes people might feel that, you know, maybe Dat Cat, like, sorry if you feel that way, because we've talked before. See, I say sorry because we've had some type of interaction together. I want to make people like you, or people that I have interactions with considerably, think, you know, highly of me, of course. Just like I want them to know where I'm arguing from when I'm in my fucking talk shit, fucking shit bag, and when I'm being serious and trying to really get to the shit, you know, like, not the shit of the shit, but like the shit as in like the data. Because those are both parts of who I am as a person. And yeah, if you're wondering why some of my audience or moderators can sometimes be like, fuck you guys, including my friends. If you guys ever meet my friends and you were to have these kind of like accusations around my friends, My friends would probably just make fun of you. Because again, they know me as a person, and they know, like, look, if you want to tone police me, by all means. I fail every tone policing argument. But guess what? Tone policing doesn't mean I'm not a kind person. Doesn't mean there's not redeemable things about me. Doesn't mean that you can't actually bridge that gap as a viewer into being a supporter by just getting to know me, by becoming my friend. I mean, I'll go as far to say, like, Baconite, Maghorn, right? Adric, Bogus, Des, Pyro, Simper, Rippies, and I can go down the list. Box, like, there's other examples. Kitty on my list here. Turnip. Most of these players I have either played with considerable amounts, or have spoken to and with considerable amount, or with a lot of time. I would consider them my internet friends. So that's passing the boundary of just being a supporter. Now, guess what? Do I think that because you're my friend, you should just defend me blindly, or defend all my videos, or like defend my arguments for me? No. Nothing changes. If anything, now we can actually fuck with each other even more. That's the best part I like about my friends, is now we can actually shit on each other even more. And for my Hispanics in the chat, or any Mexicans in the chat, you'll back me up on this, that one of the things I love the most about Mexican humor, we shit on ourselves so much. We don't give a fuck. We're not this weird, prim, proper, like, view. Like, when my dad came to visit me here, we were making fun of, like, the customs that some cultures have where they don't want to eat at certain times of the day. And we're like, bro, with Mexicans, we're just like, are you hungry? Yeah, let's eat. It's like, you eat whenever the fuck you feel like it, okay? And that's what makes, you know, me love so much of my culture, but also just love Mexicans in general, is like, they prepare you for the internet, guys. Like, Mexican humor is very similar, yeah. Like, it'll get you ready for the humor. Because people shit on each other all the time. Like, they'll say, I'm shit, I'm trash, like, I got fucked up. Like, people say this stuff all the time in normal conversation, to where you're just like, oh, okay, it's normal just to, like, be honest about you're feeling like shit today, you know? And yeah, people in chat can back me up on this. Like, can see I'm not just, like, saying this. Some American, some English cultures, like British people, I learned a lot from them in UK. Playing Habbo Hotel. Some cultures, and even some parts of Southern culture, and some parts of Northeast culture in America, will have this kind of culture built into it. But some cultures have it, like, built into the framework of whatever it is to be that kind of person. And another example is, the first time I came to Mexico, I was staying in a hotel. It was like a nice hotel in, like, the centro. And yeah, I do, Ersla. And I hear somebody shouting, yeah, woo, and, like, a group of people, like, shouting, like, woo, and I'm like, what the fuck? I open my window and I'm like, where is this coming from? I look outside, luchadores, like literal wrestlers, the masks and everything. But they weren't actual wrestlers, they were just fans. I think who probably just came back from a show, or maybe they were Mexican Americans like me, who just came and visited a show for the first time. And they had the mask on, and they were just cheering. But here's the funniest part. You might think that some people would just be like, oh, look, here comes these drunk tourists or drunk annoying people. Dude, all the people that were walking by were fucking laughing with them. They thought it was so fucking funny. The people would walk up to them, yeah, and start cheering. These are literal strangers in the middle of the street. And that shit was so fucking funny. I was just, like, watching it and just laughing, because I'm just like, what is going on? This is like 2 a.m. Okay? This was like 2 a.m. in the middle of the night or morning. And some fucking, like, group of luchadores are fucking, like, shouting and cheering. And a group is forming around them. And they were, like, walking in a group together cheering. And they didn't even know each other. That shit was so funny to me. But those are the kind of experiences I had when I first came here, that I was like, oh yeah, I need to be in Mexico, man. This is the place for me. Obviously, I love visiting other places around the world because I love to travel. And I love going back to Texas and America too. My favorite places to go in America are San Diego, Texas, like South Texas, obviously. Sorry, my northerner friends. And New York. Those are my 3 favorite. Yep, pretty much, Box. Yeah, and DatCat, to be clear, now that I'm seeing more of where you're coming from, to like again, and I think we see where each other are coming from based on earlier. I'm not trying to be like, gotcha, tell me the evidence, huh. No, it's literally, it's easier for me to talk about it if I can see it and actually go through it. But I want to seriously acknowledge you for a second. I tried to do this to the dumbos that joined chat, but they weren't really interested in me in good faith. They just wanted to like yell at me and make me try to feel bad or something, whatever. I don't know. I'm a human being who's definitely solidified on my identity, so relax. But I offer it to people like you. Do I think that this type of approach, the no tolerance towards idiots past a point, is alienating? Can alienate people away from me and my cause and my message? Yes. I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that that part of me wanting to be myself and express it is willingly acknowledging that I'm putting a barrier in between my audience in some sort of way if they don't want to overcome it or can't. And I'm potentially alienating the people who maybe are more sensitive to that sort of thing. Do I think that there's value in those people? Yes. Do I think that there should be content that's reserved for people like that, including, especially even content that I have? Yeah, my series is like that largely. You can just watch my death of a game. Don't watch my shit posting. Don't follow me on Twitter. Don't follow me on Reddit. Don't come to the Discord and shit post with me. Don't come to, I'm being serious. Like, if you don't want to see, or if you don't want to see the other parts of me, then just consume my content. I'm actually okay with that. But when it starts to become like, well, I only consume the content and I will tell you how you are as a person and how to act as a person, it's like, okay, well, I can respect your opinion, especially because I literally just acknowledged to you, is it the best optical approach? Not even for me making money. I've admitted this multiple times on stream. I'm not the best content creator at making money. Best way to make money, not go against your audience, and make as generalistic content as you can. I don't do either of those things. From my experience, Mexican humor is mostly innuendo. By the way, I'm gonna go after this, guys, because I'm pretty tired. Today's kind of like my day off. So I'm gonna take it. I still think I do respect you. Oh no, I already read that part. I wasn't critical enough reading the comments, lol. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, you're probably just like talking more about like your personal perspective. And if you guys want to speak from perspectives like that, and this goes to any of the commenters, like you can couch your statements. It's not that hard, especially once you actually pay attention for a little bit. All you have to do is be like, hey, in my opinion, hey, I feel, hey, based on this point, I think, right? You can still even make a logical argument. It doesn't just have to be my feels, my opinion. But if you don't couch any of that stuff, it's like, where are you even arguing from? Most of the time, I think it's just emotions, if I'm being honest. Especially with my experience with talking to so many people. Every time I'm aggressive, they have to see it as me being emotional. Which is, again, not only just a fallacy, it's just, it actually is more revealing of your own character. Because for you to do that sort of thing, you need to be angry. I don't need to be. I don't need to be angry to like clown people or make jokes or get clowned on, right? Like, yeah, conversations like this are a lot more interesting, and you'll also encounter people a lot more willing to go back and forth with you. You can also present topics, you know, threads and even videos to discuss, and even react to my videos and discuss them. Another thing to acknowledge what you said here. Man, I'm dehydrated. You said that I was posting on... What do you think of Destiny the streamer? I've seen you comment a few times on the videos. I think Destiny is an OG streamer. For those that aren't aware, if you're a StarCraft OG, you know who Destiny is. Just like you know who Idra is, just like you know who Stephanos is. You know these players because they were like the old school like pros that kind of brought in a lot of like excitement and really just like the internet shit talk stuff to the StarCraft scene in a way that nobody ever experienced before. I love that stuff. I love shit talk. I love shit talking in competitive environments. And I hate how sterile most 1v1 games that aren't fighting games are, like StarCraft. It's so sterile, it's so boring. Where's the rivalries? Where's the, hey, this guy versus this guy? Where's low tier God? Where's the low tier God of StarCraft? I think that's what's actually lacking, ironically, in StarCraft 2 so much was those personalities and the fact that they could have put more effort into trying to stoke those personalities. Now, people will incorrectly say, yeah, but they just got beat. That's not how you stoke personalities, guys. You give them winnable matchups. You give them winnable tournaments. You put them in positions that they can be who they need to be. So from that perspective, that's how I learned about Destiny first. And then, obviously, second off, I don't talk about politics much here because I, don't have the patience to go into a whole other topic that I have to literally, like, have a whole other, like, thing prepared for. As well as the amount of, like, stupidity that exists in political realms is just, like, astronomical because it's, like, one of the easiest things to comment on. There's a lot of reasons it's not very, like, exciting for me to, like, venture into or talk about. But like if you follow me on Twitter sometimes or Reddit, for example, you'll see me talk about stuff like that. And my opinions are pretty clear. Like I'm a fairly liberal social person, but ironically, I'm actually a little bit more conservative when it comes to things like the government or even like things like the military. And that's kind of where like people call this like the neoliberal or whatever archetype, where you're actually like supportive of the government, but you are liberal at the same time. It's probably more of where I'm in alignment with. So yes, does that make me, by some people's recollection, be more in the center? If you're American, maybe. If you're like European or have any other kind of political experience, no. I'm probably more left-leaning, right? But in America, I'm considered more middle because I support things like the military and guns and education. And yet, I'm also liberal in this way, right? So that's kind of like where I stand on that sort of stuff. So you can very easily sort of intuit and figure out what my stances are on things like that. If someone doesn't support the military or what they help with, I don't like or support them. They don't support the government and the thing that it helps with, then I don't like or support them. If they're not like happy about the things that make you American or whatever, then I don't support them. Like, fairly simple for me. Obviously, going into minutia policy and all these other stuff can be where things get complicated. But that's usually where I like to terminate my political discussions, especially if I'm not talking to somebody I don't know. So, yeah. For example, that's a good place to end. Oh no, I'll say this too. I think Destiny's fucking hilarious, and I think people like that are hilarious because guess what? I'm the same kind of person. I grew up on the internet. And yeah, when you grow up on the internet, like, we had to learn the hard way and through many, many years that the way that we spoke about people wasn't normal. We used to use gamer words, guys. We used to use a lot of gamer words, okay? A lot of that's toned down. You don't see us using gamer words to the same extent. But you're never going to hear me suddenly be okay with idiots being so proudly idiotic. Sorry. But to everybody else, to leave on a positive note, I would like to thank you for all of the recent positive receptions that I've gotten, including on the video. The videos have been doing really well. And I think the next one's going to be a lot more positive, if that's more of your thing. It's covering Rusty Hearts, which was kind of like, almost like a Persona-like online game before Persona, online thing failed or whatever. But I think it will be interesting. And also shout out to those who take the time to read through, watch my content, look at my sources, or at least know that they're there, read the description, or at least know that it's there, and come to Discord or come to chat and actually take the time to engage with me. I'm very grateful for that, because as much as I can sit here and talk about the people that aren't present, I need to talk about the people that are present, and that I'm very grateful for your support and your continued support, including that even after a lot of these tirades that, I went through in the shit posting, like, my Patreon money went up. And that might be confusing for some people. Why is that? I think it's because for some people, they actually care more when you take a principled stance. And so they're willing to put their money where their mouth is. So shout out to those that put money on Patreon for me. After this recent like drama stuff, you guys are real ones, seriously. Because you did it even in spite of that stuff. Which is almost like, not just a cosign, it really feels like you see where I'm coming from, you know? Where I'm arguing from, so. Will Speak Your Brains be posted here on YouTube? I think, yeah. I think I'll do like a side video and I'll leave it up where I talk about kind of like the most commonly asked questions, the most commonly levied criticisms, and sort of more of my ideology that I explain a lot on stream. And then that way, every time it happens, I can just point to the video and be like, go watch this. I have a video that talks about why I make this series, but I think I need another one, to be honest. Good thing StarCraft 2 wasn't toxic enough. Let's talk about politics. Yeah, no, it was... yeah, Strobel. That was a funny meme. You're right, that when you do venture into that way, it becomes ugly very quickly. So, I don't know. It's, the world is weird. There's so much misinterpretations and misunderstandings that can happen. That's why you're best off trying to, you know, explain yourself as much as you can and try to meet people at the same level. And just, my advice as always is just be curious. Be curious about life, question shit, including even what your own people are saying. Because yes, even the StarCraft 2 fan base is incredibly, yeah, people brought up Diablo, Gauntlet. They also brought up, fuck. No, dude. I'm forgetting, what's that beat 'em up game? Is it Dragon, not Dragon Fist, fuck. I can't remember that name. I'm brain dead, I need to eat. But, Double Dragon. They compare it to Double Dragon a lot too, ironically. So, because it's got that beat 'em up feel to it. But I like Persona as a comparison because I actually think that the visual style is strikingly similar in a lot of ways. And I actually think that the biggest problems of Rusty Hearts, ironically, come from it not being Persona. And not being that kind of game. I think it's Double Dragon. I have to remember because I was reading through like 3 different reviews. And yeah, there's a very famous, no, it's DFO. DFO, not Double Dragon. Fuck, I'm stupid, my bad. DFO and Gauntlet. DFO and Gauntlet were the 2 biggest examples that I got in my research. And then obviously followed by Diablo, followed by like, you know, whatever other games. Vindictus and games that came out later on and stuff like that. But yeah, sorry, DFO. People compare it a lot to DFO. Thanks, I appreciate that, Cat. And it was good to talk to you as well. And yeah, I'm also grateful that you're not one of those people that as soon as I give you my opinion, you don't immediately think that I'm attacking you or I hate you or don't respect you or something. It's like, yeah, like in order to even get past that point, you have to be willing and able to even get through that process. And being willing to do that shows that you're a much more curious and good faith person in my eyes. But anyway, yeah, stay curious, everybody. Shit post, but just remember, read the room, you know? If you're dealing with a bunch of dummies, if you want to talk to them, you're going to have to stoop to their level. You don't have to be mean about it, and you don't have to meme them. But when you read pretty much all of your comments, and you like to engage with your audience, guess what? You kind of like memeing them, because it's just a part of the process. I wake up 6, 7 a.m. every morning or so, hop on my YouTube, check my comments, and I start shitposting. No cap. That's literally a morning for me. And it's entertaining. Now, is there diminishing returns for the fun aspects of it? Yeah. In fact, once I've read the same things over and over again, like maybe 40 times, usually the 40th time is, or the 41st time. The 41st? The 45th time. The 41st time is the time that I'm like, okay, I don't really think you have anything noteworthy to say. But anyway. You alright? Thanks. Yes. No, I was kidding. But see ya, it was fun. StarCraft 2 fans are crazy. They are, but look, I can't believe I'm gonna end on this note, but I'm going to. I know, I'm such a fucking softie. It's because I'm a liberal. No, I'm just kidding, but cut them a little bit of slack. Suddenly they went from being literally the most popular RTS in the world, one of the most popular games in the world, had a bunch of shit happen where it just got fucking thrown to the wayside by corporate decision making that many of the fans don't even understand fully. And then after that happened, they stopped getting new content for their game, have only been getting maintenance mode updates, and whenever they have a third-party tournament happen, or maybe the Pro League, for them that's like the only bit of life and love they do have, right? So seriously, I leave the StarCraft 2 fans, including the angry ones, with that. I get your pain. I was playing Galaxies long after its heyday, and I used to wonder why nobody wanted to play that game either. Yeah, it's because your opinion doesn't make up the market's opinion. And the market's opinion when it comes to success at a grand scale is, you know, largely pretty much what matters. Unless you just want to argue the critical aspect of things, right? Which angers a lot of movie fans. But anyway, go watch the Deadpool Wolverine movie. If you're an X-Men fan, it's fucking amazing. I don't have anything else. I'm shilling that, by the way. They sponsored me. No, I'm just kidding. But fuck, I would take that check, dude. Damn, I would take that. That would feed me for months. Peace out, guys.